Hey guys, we've gotten some questions about the best way to promote a podcast, especially when you just launched. As you know, there's so many different podcast apps out there, and especially like for Android users, they might use Spotify, they might use Google Podcasts, they might use Pocket Casts. There's just so many different options. So when you're promoting your podcast, you want to find a very easy way to give all your users, all your listeners, a single link to find your show, and then they can pick whatever platform is best for them, and just to simplify the process so that you don't have to keep track of an Apple link, a Spotify link, a Google Podcast link, an Overcast link, all of these different links that send people to your show. So there's 3 ways to do this. Starting off with Captivate. This is a new podcast hosting provider and one that we use for a big portion of our shows. On Captivate, if this is your podcast hosting provider of choice, they've actually made this very easy. It's already built in. So if you go to the marketing tab for your show, once you fill in your links for Apple, Spotify, and Google, you can create what's called a single subscription link. So this is already built into Captivate. You don't have to do anything else. Just fill these out, and it will create a link for you. And we'll copy this, and let's open this up and see what we get. So this is just a landing page. When you get here, a user can just click to select whatever podcast app they use to listen, and it will open your show on that dashboard or on that platform. So that makes it very simple. So when you're promoting the podcast, it doesn't matter what the user uses, you can just send this one link and they get to choose whatever is easiest for them. If you don't have Captivate as your host, Podlink is another platform. It's a third-party platform that does this for you as well. So if you just go to pod.link, you can go ahead and search up your podcast. So we'll just do Rogue Squad podcast. And it already has these generated based on podcasts that are in the Apple Podcast library. So you don't have to submit anything to Podlink. It already catalogs your show as long as it's on Apple. One thing to note is, you can make a custom Podlink. I'll talk about that in a second. So if you just go search up your show on Podlink and pop this open, you're going to end up with all of these links here, all of these badges, I should say. So a similar setup, a user can just go ahead and click Apple Podcast, and it will open the show in Apple. One thing that you can do, though, is also pay for a Podlink premium page. I think it's $10 just per year, very cheap. If you do that, it will take off the ads. Actually, just to compare and contrast, let's just pull up a random show on Podlink so you can see what it looks like. A show that doesn't have premium. And we'll just wait for this to load. There we go. So your auto-generated show, if you search it up, has ads on it. And it also does not include a link to Spotify. Those are premium features that you can get by paying for Podlink. So this is what it looks like if you don't pay for it. Again, those ads are there. And the URL is conveniently pod.link/your iTunes ID or your Apple ID for your podcast. We have a blog post about this, which I'll link in the description below. But basically, every podcast on Apple Podcasts is given an ID, which is in your URL here. And that is the same ID that shows up, wrong tab, that shows up in Podlink here. So that makes it easy. If you know your ID, you can just type in pod.link/ that string of numbers, and it pops up. But I do recommend, if you're going to use Podlink to pay that $10 a year for the landing page, it's nice to get the ad out of there. And obviously Spotify is now the number 2 platform for podcasting, so having that link easily accessible would be recommended. There's one more option here as well, and this one is a little more robust. This is a platform called Trackable. So if you sign up for Trackable, they do a variety of services. Tracking your placement on Apple Podcasts is one of them on the Apple Podcast charts. But one big one is Smart Links. So we're going to create a Smart Link here. And I'm just going to search I'm just going to use my podcast, Rogue Squadron. Now, you can make a smart link for the show itself, which if I do that, it will just take me to my show's main directory on Apple or Spotify or wherever. You can also do this for a specific episode. So once your episode comes out, I think it's about a 5-minute refresh on Chartable. Once the episode is live, you can link to a specific episode of the show as well. So if you want to make one of these every week when you release a new episode, that's possible as well. I would recommend this, at least to start, just for the main podcast itself. So this is going to generate a Chartable URL for this smart link. If you want, you can type in a custom URL so that the link is easy to remember and easy for your users and your fans to see. So if you're just the name of your show, and it's going to appear as link.chtbl.com/whatever your custom slug is. So whatever the name of your podcast is going to be. If you don't do that, it will just randomly assign one for you. You can also add a Facebook pixel here for tracking, which is convenient. We're going to skip that for now, but the important part here, and the reason this is such a nice feature, is that you can tell the smart link to send a user to a specific app based on what platform they're using. And you can check these boxes here and apply certain rules. So if you want all of your iOS users to automatically go to the Apple Podcast app, you can select that here. Mac users can be sent to the Apple Podcast app on Mac. You can send Android users to Google Podcasts, or you can send them to Spotify. For example, you can send everyone to Spotify if you want to focus on that platform. And then if there is no rule set, or if your user is clicking the link and isn't using iOS or Android and doesn't apply to any of these, it will send them to a default landing page. This is an example of what that would look like. So very similar to the Captivate one that we came up with. Apologies, let me open this up again. So it's similar to this. And this is automatically generated by Chartable. So if you set nothing, it will redirect them to this page instead, and then they can click whatever link works for them. Not as many options, you'll notice, as we had for Captivate, just Apple and Spotify, and then the RSS feed itself. So usually what I'll do is I'll send iOS to Apple, I'll send Android to Spotify, and then if nothing matches, if those two user agents don't match, then it will send them to this example page. Or if you also use Captivate, what you can do is copy this dashboard and include this here. So that way, if they don't meet this criteria that you select, then they'll go to the Captivate landing page instead, which has more options and looks a little cleaner in my opinion. And then you can also customize what the SEO looks like. So if you share this on Facebook, and Facebook tries to auto-generate, a description and a link title as well as a link thumbnail, you can customize that. And then you can add a custom social media image there as well. And then when you're done, just go ahead and save that smart link. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to make a duplicate. And then it will save it here, and it will also track clicks to the smart link. Unique users and also total clicks that are coming to that smart link. We'll be covering that in a different video. But that's it. So 3 ways to share your podcast. Easy promotion using one link with either Captivate, Chartable, or Podlink. So I'll link all those platforms in the description as well. And then please, drop a comment if you have any questions on how to get those set up.